Hello and welcome to the Heat Check podcast, the Miami Herald's Miami Heat podcast. I'm David Wilson, and I'm joined, as always, on the other line, L.A. Anthony. It's Anthony Chiang, our Heat beat writer here at the Herald on the West Coast. What's going on, Anthony?
I'm in LA, but still the same Anthony with my Cuban.
There you
Café con
go.
leche there, a little.
Is that you
Cuban
found a little Cuban coffee spot near your
Yeah,
hotel?
yeah. Since I've been coming to LA now for the last 4 or 5 years, I found a Cuban restaurant that's fairly close that I like to go to when I'm here. So, my second time, I actually didn't go. I actually ordered it this time, but yesterday I did go. So I always make a trip there.
How does it hold up? How does it compare?
The food is good. Food is really good. I think it compares to Miami food. And it is like pretty authentic, but the coffee
not as good.
No, and I've tried to like talk to them about like the differences, and they're like, "Oh, really? You drink it with sugar over there?" It's like,
oh wow,
it's like the LA version of Cuban coffee.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
All right. We are back at first episode of the new year after the holiday break. Heat playing some of their best ball of the year, maybe just straight up their best ball of the year. We're recording this Wednesday evening on the East Coast, Wednesday afternoon out on the West Coast. Heat plays the Lakers tonight as part of a 2-game swing through LA. No LeBron, no AD tonight. So if it's a loss, it'll probably be a pretty bad one for the Heat.
Yeah, I would say so.
Even a road game, but whatever. Nonetheless, like I said, they've won 8 of 11, 4 of 5 since Christmas. Including some good wins, Clippers on Monday night, Jazz with the Tyler Herro buzzer beater, probably the most exciting win of the year for the Heat, and even the one loss in this stretch, 5-point loss at Denver, who might be the best team in the league right now, is not too shabby either. But the injuries, which has been such a big story for the team, couple more blows coming this week. Not huge marquee guys, like obviously. The biggest story for the Heat has just been Jimmy Butler's availability. That kind of determines everything with these guys. But today, news breaks, Duncan Robinson having surgery on his finger, right? Which finger is it? Something on his shooting hand, right?
The right middle finger.
Right middle finger, which obviously important to shoot with.
Sure. Yeah.
He'll miss about a month. Nikola Jovic, was that yesterday that it got announced he's going to be out about a month as well. We've talked so much about the depth issues this team has, and this is a little different because these guys are, when all is going right, not rotation guys or very back. Duncan obviously is kind of in and out of the rotation, and had been playing actually pretty well lately, I thought. But just more blows to the depth where all of a sudden we're back to the point with this Heat team where it's like one more of these injuries and all of a sudden like you feel really thin, which, not concerning right now, but it could get there. And considering how this season has gone, like we're anticipating the worst. I think most Heat fans are like, here we go again a little bit, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's just the way things have been going. Like you can't afford these extended absences because you need all the depth you could get with Victor Oladipo still hasn't played full back-to-back yet. Jimmy's missed, back-to-backs last month. The good thing for the Heat is they don't have a back-to-back till February, so that's a good thing.
Yeah, they've actually
had
a couple 2 days. I mean, it's Christmas time. Yeah. Like this time of year always is a little bit more rest built in, but they have had some, 2 days off around Christmas, a couple of days off. I think there was another game here where they had like 2 days off.
There was like a stretch of where they had like 2 games, like 9 days or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, they're pretty much going to start every game this month with 13 guys available at most.
Yeah,
right.
And one of them is Udonis Haslem.
One of them is Udonis. 2 of them are two-way guys, and usually one of those 13 probably is going to be out. Right. That's just like the way the season has gone.
Yeah, I mean, last week we were kind of excited about the possibility of them maybe being able to give Dedmon some rest, and all of a sudden now he's going to be he's had that foot issue all year long.
Yeah.
You're hoping at some point here maybe he could get 2 weeks off to let it rest. Probably not going to be super likely anymore.
I mean, Orlando Robinson has been playing well in his play.
Yeah, so that's the thing, I guess.
Still, but in general, like Max Strus gets hurt, or Bam, God forbid, gets hurt, or any depth player gets hurt. Victor Oladipo can't play because he's part of his maintenance plan. You're really thin at this point. So that's going to be the struggle. I mean, they have one open spot in the 15-man roster, but just like we've talked about all season. They've been hesitant to fill that spot because of the luxury tax. 10-day contracts are allowed to be signed starting on Thursday, but you sign a 10-day, that takes away from the money you have between the tax that you have to wait even longer to sign a guy in March, right? So you really don't want to do that. You want to probably wait until March if you can, when you can sign a guy for the rest of the season, then have him eligible for the playoffs because you sign him through the end of the season, and you're still not going into the tax. So I think for now, the Heat are probably going to just try to push through with what they have, and knock on wood that there are no more injuries because they really can't afford that many more because they're getting pretty thin.
Yeah, like you said, it's more everyone's always thinking 2 moves ahead, and that's the point the Heat is in right now, right? Where right now not crippling, but it's very easy to envision a game. Like you said, they have no back-to-backs for a.
Yeah, that's very helpful.
Literally not for the rest of the month, actually.
No, they don't have it. They don't have it until like February 10th, I think, is when it is. So
10th and 11th.
That will be very helpful.
Because you could have very easily seen a situation where, like, let's say they had a back. They played Milwaukee twice in 3 days in Miami. Like, if that had been a back-to-back instead of a 2 and 3 days, like, you could have easily seen a scenario where the Heat goes into a game with like 8 guys, right? Just because, like, Tebow gets a night off, Jimmy, whatever, his random night off, someone's sick, like it. It's not the worst time in the schedule for the Heat to be dealing with some of this, but just be aware that, like, at some point here, like, we might have one of those games where it's 9 Heat guys available again, like we were seeing pop up all the time throughout, like, November, December, basically.
Yeah, and I think it's important to know too, Duncan actually injured the finger on November 18th before the Heat's game in Washington against the Wizards. They were, I think it was right before shoot-around. He was playing 2-on-2, hurt his hand. He missed that game because of a sprained hand, I think it was listed as. Came back the next game, has played through it pretty much for the last month and a half. But he told us today, he was at shoot-around today in LA before he got the surgery this afternoon. He said that it just got to a point where it wasn't getting better. He was changing the way he had to shoot the ball, even though he was shooting the ball pretty well.
Yeah, I think Cooper Moorhead tweeted he's been shooting not 35% from 3 since that injury, which obviously is not what
it's not Duncan standards,
do, but it's
pretty better than he was. Duncan, it still was better than he was shooting before the injury, right? But he said he felt like he was needing to change the way he shot the ball, which is obviously not a good thing, and he noted that. Got a second opinion in LA on Tuesday. Actually, this all happened really quickly. Like on Tuesdays, we got the second opinion, and they said probably need to get the surgery. It's never going to get better unless you get it, and it's always going to feel. It's never going to function the same way until you get the surgery. So 4-week recovery timeline, I think. So the hope is he'll be back next month, and then he should be good for the rest of the year. So I think that was kind of why the decision was made to go and do it right now. But yeah, he has been playing through the injury for the last 2 months, which we knew it happened, but we didn't know that it was lingering in this way.
Yeah. That to me, that's the one that could, because every once in a while you get one of those Duncan games, like they'll miss him a little bit, right? Because
his 3-point volume,
his
like
3-point,
it's him and Strus pretty much.
Yeah, exactly. They'll miss him. It won't be felt like every night because there are a lot of nights when he's just a non-factor, but they'll feel his absence, I think, for sure. But again, like the bigger picture here is the Heat are finally playing well, and these are the kind of injuries that can pile up. But for now, I don't think it's enough to disrupt what the Heat has going. Where, we talk about it every week, the back and forth nature of this season, but it honestly, really, like, it does feel like they've finally turned a corner for really the first time all year, where sustained good performances, the best guys playing really well, and kind of have a rotation figured out, and which is part of why these are not super crippling injuries, because these are, they've got a tight rotation figured out here, where guys like Orlando Robinson, as you mentioned, have emerged, and I don't know, I kind of feel like they figured out. It's a bummer. It's definitely a bummer for Duncan, who's obviously has had a rocky couple of years here. But for the Heat, it should not be the kind of thing that disrupts what they have going, I don't think.
Yeah. I will say this probably doesn't make it impossible to trade Duncan if that's what they were looking to do. but it probably makes it more likely that he ends the season here, right? Because of the injury. Could
Yeah,
be back
so
by the February
let's say
9th trade
he's out
deadline.
exactly
Yeah.
a month. He's back February 4th, basically, as we're talking now. What's the trade deadline this year?
February 9th.
Yeah, so it's going to be
So
tough.
it's going to be close. I mean, it could still happen, but it makes it more likely, I would say, that Duncan probably ends the season here.
Yeah, especially the thing with the Duncan trade, and we shouldn't get too derailed here. We obviously have plenty of time to talk about trade possibilities when we get close to the trade deadline. Is the appeal of Duncan is he's not salary filler. He's a valuable player. You know, obviously he's a little redundant with what they found with Strus and just that he prioritizes different things, but he's valuable, and you know, I think it's hard to sell that value obviously when he's coming off an injury like that.
Yeah. But to your point about the Heat playing better lately, yeah, I mean, they won 8 of 11. Their schedule hasn't exactly been tough, right? Like they have wins against Indy, OKC, Houston, San Antonio, Minnesota, Lakers, Utah, the Clippers, without Kawhi. Like it hasn't been a super tough schedule, but there's something to be said about winning the games you should, right? And Heat weren't doing that early in the year. And if you look at the numbers, like they're going about it a little differently than they did last year, but they're still getting back to that formula that worked last season where I think since December 1st, or actually in these last 11 games, 8-3 stretch, they have the 4th best defense, I think the 17th best offense, which is kind of like that we've talked about.
That's what they need to be.
That's what they need to be. The offense, obviously, they would like to be better than 17th, but if you're around average, a little bit above average, and you have a top 5 defense, you're going to be a true contender. I know there seems to have been a pretty big gap between Boston, Milwaukee, and I guess even Brooklyn right now from everybody else in the East. But if the Heat can continue playing at this pace, their defense can continue to be a top 5 unit, and their offense can continue to trend in the positive direction, they're gonna go on a good stretch here, and they probably will move up in the standings to like that 4 or 5 range.
Yeah,
like we've talked about.
Yeah, already up to 7th, 1 game out of 6th, and 3 out of 5th. So like it's, as we've said, they've been close all year. There's a lot of mid in the Eastern Conference, as the kids would say. But the Heat have a chance, I think, to, like we've said a lot, to be the top of that next tier. And
the top of the mid. Yeah.
The top of the mid. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and they're getting healthier, right? Like
yeah, I mean that's the big thing.
That
was the thing. It was it's different than like some of these, like some teams that I think can use injuries as an excuse to like ignore flaws. And
right.
The Heat have flaws, obviously, but like I think like the Miami Hurricanes, the football team, and like the way that like they kind of are just like, if we had Tyler, we would have been fine. But like probably not.
No.
Like
no.
You look pretty terrible when Tyler Van Dyke was in too. You lost to Middle Tennessee with Tyler Van Dyke. The Heat, I think there was a little bit more justification that where it's just like if these guys are healthy, they're actually good because the numbers actually bear that out. When the starting lineup is all played. I mean, it's one of the better starting lineups, right, in the East. And when Jimmy, Tyler, and Bam are all available at the same time, this team is good. Like they're not incredible, but they're good.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you just look at the core, right, of I'm trying to find it here. The Herro, Jimmy, Bam trio. It's a legit elite trio. When those three are on the court together, they're outscoring teams by 11 points per 100 possessions, which is obviously very, very good. So the best players are available.
This team is
the
good.
Heat are a very good team. It's the problem is they haven't been available that much together. So
are they Boston or Brooklyn or Milwaukee? Maybe not, but they're really good.
They're probably the 4th best. I mean, Cleveland. I know Cleveland's been playing well. I know they've had a little bit of a slide here lately, but they still have a good team as well. But I would say the Heat, they're in that.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like them, Cleveland, Philly, are the next group, right?
Yeah. So I think if the Heat can avoid injury, we've seen encouraging things from Tyler. I mean, Tyler's having the best season of his career, right? Offensively, he looks like a top 20 player offensively, right? I don't think you can even argue that at this point. And then Bam is playing definitely like an all-star. I mean, I'd be shocked at this point if he's not an all-star. He might make All-NBA this year for the first time in his career. We can get to that in a little bit.
Yeah, that's I think going to be our next topic. So
and he, just what he's doing offensively consistently, which is what everybody wanted to see for the last few years of like just this consistently aggressive and assertive Bam. We've seen it now for pretty much the last month or so. So, you're seeing really encouraging things from your two young stars, which continues to be a big positive for this team.
Before we move on to Bam, should we talk about the Herro game winner, which is one of the moments of the year so far for this team, right? In Utah, New Year's Eve.
It happened last year, though.
That's true. You're right.
With 2 minutes left in the year.
Well, snuck in one of the best plays of the year for the Heat, right? Literally right before the buzzer.
Right before, yeah.
I guess on the East Coast, that game finished. It was a 9:00 tip, right? So it finished like
it was like 11:48 or something, and then I finished takeaways like 2 minutes before midnight.
Before midnight.
Yeah.
Yeah. So really snuck it in under the buzzer. Yeah, just a good moment. Obviously, the Jazz are pretty good. I know they're not as good as they were at the beginning of the year, but not terrible. So nice
he didn't have Jimmy. He didn't have Jimmy.
Yeah, no Jimmy. That's a pretty good road win.
Yeah, and Tyler is just third game winner this season. I think third game winning shot in the last 10 seconds of a game this year too. I know he's missed a few as well, but he's clearly become, him and Jimmy, the go-to options in that situation. And it's just, that play shows you why. Just his creativity, just the ability to get that shot off coming off of one leg, sprinting full court, get to that spot, get it off right before the buzzer. I was talking to somebody with the Heat a few days ago about the shot, and they were just like, that's what makes a special offensive player. Like just that type of shot, just being able to get that shot off. I think it was one of the most impressive things. And obviously it went in, thankfully for the Heat, because that would have been a rough way to start the trip, right? You lose against Denver. I think they were winning by like 7 or 8 points in that game in the fourth quarter. Utah came back at the end. And if they would have lost that one, it would have been a rough start. But that, to win that game and then add to that with the win against the Clippers, the trip is going so far. I know we were recording this before the Lakers game. It's been a good trip so far for the Heat.
All right, we wanted to wrap up by talking about Bam, who has been a regular topic of the Bam's, I don't know what we want to call this run that Bam is on, where we're at the point kind of where it's not a hot streak anymore. It's just, this is Bam now, because he, for the last 2 months, 3 months almost now, I don't know, like when, I guess it was when Jimmy, it was the kind of that road trip, right? There was a bad road trip, right, where Jimmy was out, and Bam had a couple really, really good performances, and he has just kept it up. Anthony, you wrote about it today. I think it was today. Today, this morning, yesterday? I don't remember.
Yesterday.
Yeah. You wrote about Bam and the way that he is just playing aggressive, which is the thing people have wanted for years. What has changed this year for Bam? Why is Bam now the Bam that people always hoped he was going to be?
Well, I think he listened to his team. He said it this offseason, right? The players, coaches have been telling him, we want you to be more aggressive, take a bigger role in the offense. It's
not just Heat fans on Twitter.
No, it's the team. Like they're trying to empower him to take on this role, and he's obviously listened. And I think it's like he just seems so much more sure of himself. He makes really, really smart reads. And Eric Spoelstra kind of said this after the last game against the Clippers. He said, I think what he's doing now probably better than he ever has in his career. He's reading the defense and what's called for in each possession. And he's also he's just so good at getting to his spots, no matter what it is. Like the Clippers had Zubac on him for most of the game, playing drop. Bam would just dribble into that in the paint jumper that he's kind of made his trademark shot.
Yep.
And then Clippers try to go small with like Marcus Morris or Batum on him. And he would just isolate against those guys in the post and take advantage of that size mismatch. So he's just, no matter what you throw at him, pretty much he has an answer. And that's a lot of work behind the scenes to develop that type of offensive game, but also just kind of going through those rough experiences he went through, whether it was in the Bucks series 2 years ago or the playoffs last year when there were a lot of games where he was pretty quiet. I think he's found, like just watching the film, he's found different solutions to different ways teams are playing him. And also just the fact, like last game against the Clippers, I think 18 of his 19 shots were in the paint. That's huge. Right?
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole thing, right?
Yeah, like the last 3 years, it's been like a lot of Bam mid-range jumpers outside the paint or on the baseline. Like, no, this year he's getting into the paint, A lot of them are those in between shots,
Yeah,
not
which
necessarily at the
good at
rim,
those.
but he's good at those. And I think that's another big part of kind of the big improvement we've seen so far from him this season.
Yeah, we should say, like, I know some of it is just mentality, like, all right, just get to the paint, but like it's hard to get to the paint. So he's just getting he's improving. Like his handle is probably a little tighter, like subtle stuff. Like his handle's a little tighter. He feels really good about that like short jumper floater. I don't know what we call that shot, but like you said, it's his signature move, and he feels like he can make it every time. And yeah, it kind of, I think it works better in the flow of the offense where those elbow jumpers, like the way those shots work is naturally just like things freeze, right? Like you're not in motion when that shot happens, right? It's even those like pull ups in the paint, those are coming off a dribble, pull up, take it right up, right? Those, and I think it benefits the whole team. Obviously, the gravity that he creates just by going to the rim benefits everyone, but I think just that constant motion is obviously that's like what the Heat wants too.
Yeah, and I think the pick and roll game now with Tyler has been so good.
Yes,
I mean,
that has been a
that's
really
helped him a
good
lot.
wrinkle. Yes.
Yeah, that's helped him get a lot of shots in the paint because Tyler's gotten a lot better as the ball handler in pick and rolls and kind of like pacing himself, kind of slowing himself down to kind of draw the extra defender, open up some space for Bam in the paint. So I think Bam has benefited from that as well. But just in general, yeah, Bam is just this is who everybody wanted it to be, right?
I know.
And I think we forget that he's still what I think he's like 24, 25 right now still. He's still a young player. And I think we can finally say now that he's entering his prime, I would say, right? Like
Yeah.
seems like right now, like finally like the physical part of the game is kind of like now he has the mental aspect of it as well. Like they're kind of coming together, and that's what we're seeing this season. And I think it's almost like the definition of entering your prime when those two aspects kind of come together. Yeah. So
when your skills, your athleticism, and your brain are all
IQ, right?
At that
it comes
certain
at that
point.
level. Yeah. And I think we're starting to see that with Bam, which again, and we've even through all the losses, you and I kept saying like there was still one huge positive through all the losses. Tyler and Bam looked great.
Yeah.
Right. And
you mentioned the pick and roll. It's interesting because the Heat are like kind of famously like one of the least pick and roll heavy teams in the NBA. And
we've seen it more this year though with Bam, I think.
Yeah, and I think it's it's obvious, but like play to your player's strengths, and it's obviously a strength for Tyler Herro and Bam that they've like figured it out. And when you think about the long-term outlook of this team, like that's pretty good if you have two guys. There's nothing worse than having two star level players
you can't work together.
Have like no chemistry, right?
Yeah.
Like how often do you see that in the NBA? That's how promising cores fall apart in the NBA. The Heat certainly do not have that issue with those two, and especially when you think of like, I think like the Portland guards, right? Like what their fatal flaw was not that they couldn't play together; it was that they were both fantastic offensive players and terrible defensive players. Damian Lillard and T.J. McCollum. Bam and Tyler complement each other there too, where Bam's obviously a defensive player of the year caliber player, and Tyler Herro, like you said, he's probably not a top 20 player in the NBA right now, but he's a top 20 offensive player.
Yeah, definitely, and credit to Tyler as well. Like I know there was questions about the contract he just got from the Heat, that extension. He's living up to that deal so far.
Yeah,
he has been awesome. Yeah, he's not the best defender in the NBA, but I think he's made progress on that end of the court. You look at the on-off numbers. Usually, the Heat's best lineups have Tyler in them because of what he does offensively and the space he creates. And now he's averaging like 5 rebounds a game. I think he's getting 5 assists a game. Like just his all-around offensive package continues to grow. And he is, Jimmy's awesome, and Jimmy's still the best player on the team when he's healthy. But Tyler is definitely your most natural scorer and gifted scorer.
We've said it a lot.
At all 3 levels. So just really, really encouraging things from Bam and Tyler.
Yeah, and he's better than ever at it too. Tyler.
Yeah, for sure.
Like just efficiency. He always had like he could make the spectacular layup. He could make the really deep 3. He could hit mid range. Not as well as Jimmy, although we should probably say Jimmy's one of the best mid range guys in the league. But now he's doing just all of that more consistently, and and the Bam Tyler component of it obviously has been very beneficial to both of them. You've seen the way this offense over years and years has changed and stuff. Has that just been a natural evolution? Do you think it's something Spo realized like it was gonna, because like we said, it's not been the team's identity to run a ton of pick and roll. And obviously they're still it's not just all pick and roll, but is that just the natural evolution of offense that you've seen with the Heat here, where it's these two guys have figured it out and you just let them run it more and more?
Sorry, 3, 2, 1. I think if you want Bam to be a bigger part of the offense,
yeah, that's a good point.
That's a big part of it, right? Like just running more pick and rolls for him, get him downhill, as opposed to all the dribble handoffs he used to run 2 or 3 years ago, where you had him on the perimeter, just kind of like
a facilitator, basically.
Yeah, it was a facility. It was that put him in a more facilitating role. So I think that switch. They still run dribble handoffs with him sometimes and other guys. Like it's still a big part of their offense, but just running more pick and rolls with Bam puts him in better positions to be aggressive.
Yeah, and no one's posting up, so yeah, it's definitely the best way to involve a center like him.
Sure.
In the modern NBA.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else you got before we wrap it up? I know you got to get to the arena in a little bit here. So.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say I think my bold take, I guess, and it's not really that bold at this point. Bam Adebayo is gonna be an All NBA.
Oh yeah, that's what we want to talk about. So the center, All NBA center spot. We assume Jokic is gonna be first team All NBA, right? And they can stick Giannis as a forward on first team All NBA. Second team All NBA is going to be Joel Embiid.
Right.
Almost certainly.
After that, I just don't see anybody that you could argue is better than Bam at that position. I know Rudy Gobert has gotten a third team slot a few times.
He's not getting it this year.
Karl Anthony Towns got it last year. He's missed some time this year. Timberwolves have kind of underachieved. I think Bam has been a better overall player than Karl Anthony Towns this season. I don't know. Ayton maybe. Ayton is a center that's talented and gifted, but I still think Bam is better at this point. So I really think like Bam is on track right now to make an All-NBA team for the first time in his career. And I don't think that's that crazy.
His stiffest competition might be Sabonis.
I guess.
I would take him over Sabonis. I'm not saying he's the. I'm trying to like just pull up some stats.
Jared Allen. Jared Allen's a good center, Cleveland, but again, I just think Bam.
Yeah, Anthony Davis is probably just not going to play enough, right? Siakam started hot, but that team's disappointing.
Is he even and he's not even. He's
even a center, right? Yeah. Zion is again probably more of a power forward and now going to miss a month here. Yeah, I mean, Giannis is really a center, but you can definitely fudge it and stick him a power forward. But I think, like certainly he is. To me, he'd be the pick right now. It's him, Sabonis, Porzingis is having a good year, but you're not going to give it to Porzingis. So, yeah, I mean, it's deserved. Obviously, we've talked in the
Lauri Markkanen maybe.
Show. Yeah, Lauri, but they've fallen off too, right? Like even if the Jazz stayed out of the play-in, right? If they were a top 6 seed, maybe you give him. But
I just think it's like even the last few years he got a few All NBA votes because yes, offensively he wasn't as good as some guys last few years. This year he's better offensively. He's putting together all these 30-point games, but just what he does defensively. Right. This is a two-way guy.
It would be funny because we've talked about I can't remember. Did you vote for him for Defensive Player of the Year last year?
I did.
Obviously he's been snubbed a couple times from some all defense and defensive. He wasn't even a finalist last year, right, for Defensive Player of the Year.
Yeah, I think he finished 4th, outside the top 3.
He's been, I'd say, snubbed a couple of times, but it will be funny how it's the old joke, right, is that Defensive Player of the Year is kind of an offensive award, and obviously it wasn't last year with Marcus Smart, but a lot of times it's the best star who's the best All NBA guy who's best defensive All NBA guy. It will be funny to see if he gets third team All NBA. And once you join that club, you kind of get grandfathered in and you get the benefit of the doubt going forward. If that one day will finally translate into him getting over the hump and maybe winning Defensive Player of the Year. Doesn't sound like this year it'll happen. But
right, because they're not as good of a defensive team as they.
Yeah, exactly. But at some point, you gotta score, right? Like you got to score a certain number of points to be counted as a defensive player of the year, unless you play in Boston and then you get the Boston media hyping you up.
Boston and New York, right? I know New York really hasn't had any.
Yeah, I guess in New York,
still,
the same case.
If there was a really good defender in New York, you'd get the same treatment. So
yeah, exactly.
I expect Bam at this point to make All NBA. He'll definitely make All Defense like he has the last few years.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, probably not Defensive Player of the Year because the team's defense isn't as good as it was last year. But yeah, just like I don't think it's surprising that Bam is going to make All NBA because I think both thought maybe at one point he would kind of get that, but I
think going into last year, we both would have thought that he was hurt. He missed so much time last year that it was never going to happen.
Yeah.
But going into last year, I think both of us felt like he was going to make third team All NBA probably. Again, it's always going to be right as long as Jokic and Embiid are around. It's going to be tough to crack that top two. But
unless they get hurt or something.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, that other spot is definitely open. I mean, you think of some of the terrible centers who have made third team All NBA over the years. It's obviously gotten better now because we've got this great influx of really talented centers. But like there was like a DeAndre Jordan third team All NBA year. Like we've come a long way at the center position.
Yeah, we have. But yes, that is my bold prediction for this year. Just almost as bold as your Tyler Herro for Sixth Man of the Year last season.
I got it right.
By the way, Victor Oladipo Sixth Man of the Year. That's trending upward. I don't think it's going to happen.
Not going to happen.
He's playing very well. Good for Victor.
Yeah, I'm happy for Victor as a fellow Marylander.
Yeah, and that helps. That definitely helps their depth now as they kind of are missing three guys to have Victor back and healthy and consistently available. That's huge. Knock on wood that he stays healthy.
Did you know Andre Drummond was third team All NBA one year?
I remember when Andre Drummond was like the future of the position. I think Stan Van Gundy took the Pistons job.
I remember Andre Drummond, his high school highlights were ridiculous. I was so sure UConn was going to be like a juggernaut with him, and they were like, I don't even know if they made the tournament his 1 year there, and then he barely went in the top 10.
There were flashes though, even early on in his Pistons career. You're like, whoa, this guy's different. Like,
but he's huge and he's skilled too. Like, the skill component never became part of his game in the NBA. But yeah, he was. I mean, he was the number one recruit in the country. Like, but still, third team All NBA 1 year. Al Jefferson was third team All NBA 1 year with the Charlotte Bobcats.
He was skilled.
That was probably a terrible team, I would guess, and he just put up like 29 a game or something.
They played the Heat in the playoffs, I think, when they had Kemba and Al Jefferson was on that team, and that won 7 games, I believe.
This was back in 2014.
Yeah, I think that might
have been that year, actually. Yeah.
Clint Capella ever make one?
Clint Capella did not.
Surprising. I thought he would make one.
Andrew Bogut, 1 year with the Bucks. I'm back in like decades ago now.
Yeah.
There have been some rocky third team All NBA centers over the years. Is my larger point.
So Bam would not be the worst. The worst.
Yeah, I mean the last
he actually deserves it.
The last run we had was, like you said, Cat last year, Gobert the year before, Gobert the year before that. Gobert had a long run. He had 3 years in a row. There was another Cat year, maybe like year 2 for him or something.
It feels like Bam could be.
It's pretty much been Gobert and Cat for the last like 6-7 years.
And now Cat's not even the
DeAndre Jordan year, like one of the good Lob City teams. He made it.
Yeah.
DeMarcus Cousins made second team. And Andre Drummond 1 year. So it's stabilized a little bit because of Gobert and Cat, but there have been some weird ones, and Bam is a like worthy third best center in the NBA, I think. Definitely.
And he needs to get it now before Wemby comes into the league, and then he takes all the third team or first team actually.
Yeah, he might get it next year just based off
just the hype around him.
Yeah, I mean he's ridiculous. Like, I mean, I'm not watching these full games, which I think are all available on League Pass, right? But I mean,
just the highlights.
That like floater 3 that he just takes all the time is like ridiculous.
I'm so interested to see how he translates to the NBA. But I think I just thought about that now. But like Bam needs to get it this season.
Get it this year. Yeah, maybe next year. Maybe next year too. I mean, we got Chet Holmgren lingering around too, right? Obviously not playing this year.
Yeah,
I think we talked about it. It's hilarious that Chet was like the freakiest thing we've ever seen, and then
until
not
1 year
even
later.
like
Yeah.
like literally like a month later, like after the draft, when that Wembanyama thing was like, oh, okay, Chet's old news. We got this guy who's just as skinny and just as lanky and better.
And even more skilled. It's just it's crazy how the game is evolving. Like I remember when Giannis came in, it was like, and he's still a freak, but he was like something we've never seen before.
I mean, Porzingis, like Porzingis blew our minds that first year.
Yeah, Kevin Durant. I mean, yeah, it's just the game is evolving to a point where like these 7-footers are like more skilled than the guards. Like
Wayne Dedman,
crazy,
canning threes sometimes.
Dwayne Dedman. Oh, Dwayne.
All right. Let's finish up there. Thanks as always for listening. You can listen. You can follow Anthony on Twitter at Anthony_Chiang. He is out on the West Coast. Bunch of big Heat games coming up. A ton of nationally televised games over the next basically 2-3 weeks, which good timing for the Heat to showcase themselves in front of a national audience. We were laughing. The TNT game is Heat OKC somehow wound up as a TNT game. Because those Turner guys we're sure they want to get down to Miami in January. You can follow me on Twitter at DBWilson2. I'm typically busy with football, but it might be coming to an end soon. So maybe I'll be hanging around the Heat beat a little bit more in the next
David,
weeks here.
If I would have told you a month and a half ago that the Heat would be the only pro team in town with a winning record at this point, what would you have said?
Be pretty crazy.
It's just insane how the Heat always end up as like,
I know, the gold
after
standard.
everything. Yeah, it's just crazy. But
yeah, we got good basketball in South Florida right now with the Heat turning around. I love watching the UM team play. I think we talked about it on the show before.
Yeah, they're fun.
They played tonight too at Georgia Tech, so up to number 12 in the country. I mean, I know the Shane Larkin team got ranked higher. Like they won the ACC that year, but like that number 12, like that's a pretty good number to see sit next to UM.
Definitely. They have the ability to even move into the top 10 probably, right? They have some winnable games coming up.
Yeah.
Still, so
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, they can beat number 10 in a matter of weeks.
They get to beat up on Syracuse in a few weeks here. Martin Luther King Day. I will be in the building. Yeah.
Sadly for you.
To watch Syracuse get pummeled by Miami.
Yeah. No Heat players have been out to those UM games yet, right?
I don't know. I haven't been to a game yet this year, but
okay. Sometimes they like Bam will go out there or a couple like
a lot of those guys work out around on those facilities, right? Like
Jimmy and Kyle actually were just working out right before the trip at UM. In one of the UM facilities because like Jimmy posted a video.
It's kind of funny because like we're getting way sidetracked now, but it's funny because like their basketball facilities are like nice, but they're not like incredible. Like it's not like they're like Kentucky or Duke or North Carolina. Sure. Like it's a tiny little arena with like I don't know, like pretty small facilities back there. It's funny that
it's probably just a convenience of it. I don't know exactly where Jimmy lives, but I think he lives like
I mean if you live down in like the Grove or
Coral Gables,
obviously. And I think everyone likes Jim Larinaga.
Yes, Eric Spoelstra respects him so much. Just ask him about Coach Larinaga, and he'll spend 5 minutes talking about it.
He when I was at practice last, someone brought it up to him that he was getting in the Hall of Fame, and he was very pumped, or that he was up for the Hall of Fame. And Spo gave a good answer, just ranting about how good Larinaga is. So, all right, that's all the time we got. Anthony's got to head out to Crypto.com Arena. Is that what it is?
Staples Center. Arena? Staples Center. That's what I call it. Just like American Airlines Arena.
Be sure to follow him for the rest of this Heat road trip. Listen to the Heat Check podcast every Thursday in your ears. Thanks as always for listening, and we will talk to you guys next week.